Here's how I imagined our conversation today playing out. I thought I would say, so Mickey, you're voting for Trump, and you'd be like, no, I'm undecided. Me, Trump supporter, me responsible for the next 4 years of disaster after Trump is elected. No, 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 my hands are clean. And I would start, and I'd be like going nuts, of course. And you'd say, oh, by the way, in fact, I just gave Kamala some campaign advice. And of course, your advice is become Trump. Hi, Mickey.
Hey, Bob.
How you doing? I guess with only a few days to go before the election, your man, Donald Trump, now favored to win. You must be feeling pretty good about the state of the world.
There's lots of time. Eons of time, according to Bruce Feiler, right?
I don't know. I mean, the direction has been pretty constant for the last 2 weeks. It's like the polls continue to move in Trump's favor.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so, actually. And that was, as you know, I'm a disciple of Mark Halperin, and for weeks he was hinting that the private polls showed movement in Trump's direction, and they did. But if it continued, you would expect there to be some polls that showed Trump having a significant lead over Harris. And we haven't seen that. He's sort of flattened out, and Harris has caught up a bit. And I would not say that the recent momentum, like in the past week, has been in Trump's favor. It's more like Kamala's caught up a bit. So
wait. What polls are showing her catching up?
Well, if you look at the Real Clear Politics average, which allegedly is swamped by right-wing polls, if that means anything, she is gained in the last bit.
In the national?
Yeah, all her polls, all the polls show her getting a little bit recently. It may not be enough. It always tightens at the end. I agree that the underlying, like 2-month-long drift has been pro-Trump. But, I wouldn't, if I were to bet, I would bet on Trump. But, I wouldn't bet a lot of money on Trump. It could easily go the other way. And there have been positive signs that have been pointed up for Harris. One is there's some signs that blacks are coming back home. Now that was always the big vulnerability for Trump, which is he's building his victory on blacks and Latinos voting in unprecedented numbers for a Republican. Well, the reason it's unprecedented is because it doesn't happen. At the end of the race, they go back home. So there's some evidence that blacks are going back home. The women vote is strong, women on the march, and the bro vote is weak. And the early voting, which seems to be very pro-Republican, you can't count early voting because it doesn't mean anything, because you don't know if the Republicans are just moving votes from election day to a month earlier, the so-called cannibalizing factor. So those are the positive things that are cited. I still don't think they're enough, but you never know.
Wait, so you would bet even money on Harris right now?
No. I would bet even money. I bet for Trump.
Oh, you mean they're the positive things for Harris, but you don't think they're enough?
Yeah, but okay. And Mike Johnson said a really stupid thing today, which is that he sort of seemed to echo a reporter's suggested answer that he would be going after Obamacare, which is proven political suicide. Certainly not something you want to advertise before an election. And why did he say that? Unless the Democrats are comatose, which I don't think they are, they will have ads for that up tomorrow. And there's 4 days, an eternity in filer time.
So you mean somebody said Trump will go after Obamacare, and the Speaker of the House said, "You're damn right," or something?
No, the Speaker of the House said the Republicans in the House, if they gain control, if they hold the House, will go after Obamacare. And somebody shouted, "No Obamacare," and he said, "No Obamacare." Why did he do that? I don't know. He's trying to walk.
There's so many mysteries. Why did a guy say that Puerto Rico was a floating pile of garbage? Why did Biden say that Trump supporters are garbage? Why did, crazy times?
Well, we know, we should talk about that briefly. Did you think that was funny? I didn't think it was funny. It was okay.
The joke? The joke?
Yeah.
I guess maybe I didn't get the joke. I don't think I saw the whole joke. I don't know. No, I just what was the joke?
He's playing on the environmental narrative that there is a huge pile of flotsam and jetsam debris in the middle of the Pacific. And he said, there's a floating pile of garbage in the middle of the ocean. And he said, it's called Puerto Rico. Now,
but what's the joke? I don't get it. I mean, what I mean is there an innocent, there's no way it's not meant to disparage Puerto Ricans, right?
He's an insult comic and he insults everybody. That's his defense. I don't think he's funny. Jon Stewart bizarrely thought he was funny. He came to his defense, but
oh my God!
But he insults everybody. He has a famous roast of Tom Brady where he just like fires off these insults like a machine gun, and 1 in 10 is funny. Yeah. So if you like that, you like it. I don't like it. I think he's awful. But and there is Michael Schellenberg is up with a post pointing out that there actually is a big garbage crisis in Puerto Rico. They have a huge problem.
Probably not
huge
what
problem
the guy
dealing with their waste. Well, it's conceivable that he was thinking of that. Probably not. And Biden was just being being an asshole and over speaking as he often does. And he obviously clearly thinks that Trump supporters are garbage. And he conceivably could have been thinking, well, the Trump supporters who spoke on the stage, which I hadn't thought of, are garbage. But that's a pretty fine distinction, and if you're making that distinction, you should make it. So Harris's comment, on the other hand, today was good. It wasn't as strong as it should have been. I mean, Dan Turrentine.
She separated herself. She distanced herself from Obama's comment about Trump.
She did that, and she said, "I want the votes of all voters, including I will be president for all the voters, even those who are supporting my opponent." What she didn't do is directly say what sort of a Josh Shapiro type would say, which is, "No, I don't think Trumpists are garbage," or "No, I don't think Trumpists are that bad word." Shapiro really honors Trump voters, and it's very, very effective. And that would have been a home run for her.
I know you've been known to tear up. You've been known to tear up over Josh Shapiro's tendency to do this.
I tear up, and all my Trump friends say, but Josh Shapiro helped engineer the 2000 fraud against us, and I sort of don't care about that. But anyway.
Well, I got bad vibes about this as as an anti-Trumper. It seems to me two things have to be the case probably for Harris to win, because historically, remember, the Democrat has to win the popular vote by, a couple of percentage points to win, given the weird electoral college.
But they think that's changing.
Well, why would it? Why? I don't know.
Because
why would it change?
Trump is doing much better in New York and California and places he has no chance of winning, but he's getting more votes. So he's sort of upping his popular vote total, but that doesn't help him at all in the electoral college.
Okay. But the most alarming historical trend is that Trump voters tend to be undercounted by the polls. If that happens again, we're toast. We being the Democrats, it seems to me Harris has two hopes, and probably both of them have to materialize. One is that the pollsters, in trying again and again to correct for that, have finally overcorrected. Right. And the other is that her ground game is better than Trump's. I'm curious as to what you think about this, because there's been a lot of talk about this, that Trump, first he was outsourcing his ground. This is the get out the vote campaign. The door-to-door campaign. And at first he outsourced it to one group. And then did Elon Musk take over or something? Like, how optimistic are you about Trump's ground game?
Not very optimistic, more optimistic than I was. He outsourced it in part to Charlie Kirk, and I have absolutely no faith in Charlie Kirk. He seems like a hustler. But there's been some evidence in the early vote that even if they're cannibalizing the early vote, they're getting it out. There's a lot of early Republican votes, and maybe it's just because Republicans are now permitted to vote early, whereas before Trump said don't do it. but I think also there's some organization involved. So
That's a good point.
I still
I
think the
mean,
Democrats have an edge, but
I
not
hadn't
a big.
thought about the fact that the early voting may reflect a competent ground game, which would be bad for Harris.
And we know from Iowa that their early vote, that a competent ground game was worth about 4 percentage points for Ron DeSantis.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not nothing in this race.
So anyway, you're
So
not. Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead.
Well, I noticed when so you're full on for Trump now. Are you still continuing
No,
to deny that you're actually quite completely like? What is your status now?
I was afraid you'd ask me that, Bob. The I still claim to be undecided, and I think I actually am undecided emotionally.
What data are you waiting for, Mickey? Do you think we need
Election.
another 4 years of Trump as president before you kind of get a sense for what kind of president he'd be? How often do you have?
Well, if he's the way he was last time, I think his support would be much greater. What people are worried about is that this time he's liberated from his, traditional stodgy advisors, and he'll feel no inhibitions. I don't quite know about that because he'll be a lame duck. So
who knows? Who knows? I mean, he lost the last election, but did all but refuse to leave the White House.
So that's
who
the
knows?
point. That's the point. If Trump violates civic norms, goes
and laws, he'd have to violate laws. Yes,
violate laws. That's sort of a power grab, a sort of stick power grab. It will be because he senses he's a lame duck, and he has to at least hint that he might cling on to power. So the logical way for him to do that would be to promote Ivanka or somebody who's like a complete toady as his successor. He has appointed J.D. Vance, apparently anointing him as his successor, but Vance is not a strong enough, I think, read for Trump to rely on as being an unprincipled person. He's obviously, to my mind, a principled person. So I don't know what he would do. He'd say, I might not be a lame duck. Who knows? He's going to hint in some way about that, I think, and that'll be where the problem comes.
I don't think I don't think after January 6th, I don't think it's crazy to imagine that he will actually try himself to stay in and violate the Constitution and just find a way to stay in the White House and come up with some phony legal rationale and say, come and get me, and have enough support in the military to think he can get away with it. I don't know.
Here's how I look at it. You can rip this apart. Pascal's wager, the famous Pascal's wager, is if there's only a tiny, tiny chance of achieving heaven, it's worth it because heaven is so, the greatness of being in heaven.
What's the downside of saying you believe in God, right?
Right. This is a little like Pascal's wager, except there's a small chance.
What compares to Pascal's wager?
I'm making a similar calculation, but with little different variables. I would say there's a 20% chance that Trump will attempt something like you're saying. Okay. Now, not trivial. I'm not discounting it. I'm not saying he doesn't have the impulse. He went crazy once. And I would say there's a less than 1% chance that he would get away with it. So we have to say, how bad is that 1% chance? Is it as bad in the bad direction as heaven is in the good direction? And I would say no.
Yeah, but trying and failing could create a world of trouble for this country. Like people getting shot in the streets, for example. It could be very, very, very bad and ugly, even if he fails.
It could be bad and ugly, but I don't think it reaches Civil War levels. It reaches people being shot.
Well, there are things that are short of enduring civil war that are just terrible for the country, including this. Look, I mean, the thing that depresses me is there's no good outcome here. If Harris wins, Trump will, of course, refuse to concede. And I mean, this is the thing, Mickey. How can you support this guy? You know that he will just refuse to concede the election, regardless of the facts. So, in other words, he will try to subvert the republic, the Constitution, and you're going to support him. How can that be?
You just made a big leap. Everybody's it's perfectly acceptable if people don't concede the election. They have a First Amendment right. Nothing says they have to concede the election as long as they don't do anything about it.
Did I say it was illegal? Did I say that it would be illegal? I didn't say that. To not concede the election.
You said then he tries to subvert it. So that was
he is subverting the Constitution by violating the extremely important norm of. But it's not just that he wouldn't say the words "I concede." He'd go around saying he won. He'd try to rally the troops. He'd try to tie up the courts. He would never say die. The guy will never fucking say die.
Last time he tried to actually muscle election boards into fiddling with the results.
Right.
That is the step that is really dangerous.
Of course, extra step. Now he doesn't have as much power. There
are a lot of things he could do before then that would not be all that subversive.
How can
have a big rally on the mall where he said the election was stolen? That's fine. But when he gets around to actually like doing his real estate muscle number, like this guy is a reluctant tenant who won't sell him their building, that's where he crossed the line. That's that is something to be scared of. I agree.
No, but the fact that he did it once, I mean, how can you vote for a guy who, by your own account, was calling and trying to pressure officials like Brad Raffensperger to fabricate results so that he could legally stay for a second term? How can you vote? How can you vote for that guy?
First, I might not vote for him.
But I mean, why aren't you ruling it out?
Second, he has a lot less power now. He's a lame duck, and they've changed the rules, and he's out of power, so he can't bring the power of the president to bear on people. He can't say, my administration is going to come down really hard on you, Brad Raffensperger, because he doesn't have an administration to come down really hard on Brad Raffensperger. Those would be the reasons. And you have to look at the other side. I think on the other side, there is a 80% chance that Kamala will try to be a disaster for the country, and a 25% chance that she will pull it off. So that leads me in the same position.
I missed that part of her platform, be a disaster. But maybe you're right. She'll try to be a disaster. But let's revisit. I want to be clear. I'm not asking, given the fact that he refused to concede and tried to manipulate politicians into fabricating evidence to subvert the Constitution. Given that, why aren't you worried that he'll do that again this time in this election? That's not my question, okay? Because I concede he has less power since he's not president. Let me finish. My question is, how can you want a guy that did that to be president for 4 years, during which he will have plenty of opportunities to, again, subordinate the welfare of the nation just immensely to his own crass, primitive interests? And that's what I don't get. How can you see what he did and say, sure, another 4 years for this guy?
No, you don't say, oh, goody, another 4 years, but you have a choice. You have to weigh the chances of how much damage he can do versus the chances of how much damage Kamala will do. And, I sort of throw up my hands. I think they're both horrible. And I could write in you, Bob. I was thinking of writing in Ron DeSantis. But
no, I would go with me. But she will not try to subvert the Constitution in the way that he probably will, and certainly will be willing to. I mean, as you said, he's not going to go quietly one way or another. He's going to, try to install Ivanka this is a perfect example, resign a month before the end of the election or a year or something. And I don't know, pull some kind of bullshit. He'll do
appoint Ivanka. No, you can't do that. That's much more likely to happen now.
He'll think of something.
If there were 3 more weeks in the election, I think there would be pressure on Biden to resign. But there aren't.
By the way, with your concerns about Harris are what? Is that mainly about immigration? The 80% chance?
Mainly about immigration. It's mainly about immigration. I mean, we let in 10 million more people, and if we let in 10 million more, and certainly if we have an amnesty, we've dramatically changed the demography of America in a way that completely screws over low-wage, lower-skilled workers who are been the people that have been most screwed over in the last 4 decades, and that's changes the texture of America in a disastrous way.
Can we talk about the famous immigration chart that Trump showed when he was right before the assassination attempt, and then again
Sure.
during the convention. I was like looking at this, and it's just an example of how brazen he is. He points to this point and says, "This is the lowest that illegal immigration has been in blah, blah, blah. And that was my last week of office." Now, not only is that a lie, not only did his last week of office come a year later after extreme growth in illegal immigration.
I don't think it was a year later. I don't think it was a year later. It was later. It was later
no,
because
I'm looking at the chart. Okay, maybe 10 months later. Maybe, well, actually, no. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I think it was January when it was at the lowest.
Yeah. No, it's like 10 or 11 months later. I'm looking at the chart, but here's the amazing thing is that it wasn't just him telling the lie. You look at the chart and there's an arrow that says Trump leaves office, which is itself the 11-month lie.
Well,
I mean, they prepare these dishonest materials and nobody goes, wait, this is a lie. And nobody calls them on it.
He's been called repeatedly, but the basic story he's telling is true, which is immigration, the unauthorized migration sort of got out of control in the middle of his presidency.
Right.
And because people were...
Well, he doesn't tell that story, though. That's the truth. It got out of control in the last year of his administration.
That's in the chart. That's in the chart.
Yeah, but
not
he doesn't. But he
not in the last year.
I just told
in the middle. Let me finish. In the middle, it got out of control. He moved heaven and earth and found two things that worked. One is remain in Mexico, and the other was muscling the Mexican government into stopping it. And that brought it down. And it brought it down to the low point on that chart. Then what happens is, in anticipation of a Biden victory, people start coming again. That happens all the time. There's an early rush to the border that happens in the predecessor's term, and that happened under Trump. And that's why he has to fudge the end date, because he didn't want to take responsibility for this anticipatory Biden is coming, he'll let us in surge.
The very sharp increase begins close to a year before Biden does take office. So I don't know about that. I mean, you could say that about whenever it begins. Oh, it was at that point that they started to anticipate a Biden. I mean, that's an unfalsifiable claim. But the point is,
but you can look at previous presidencies where it's happened.
Anyway, if you look at the increase during the Biden administration, it is to some extent a continuation of what started at the end of the Trump administration. Yeah, anyway, it isn't.
Biden overruled all the Trump policies that worked. He overruled remain in Mexico. He installed this guy Mayorkas as the HHS and Homeland Security. And Mayorkas' whole job is getting to it's sluicing in as many immigrants as possible because he thinks it's a good thing. And he figured out ways to do it. He figured out this parole loophole, which used to let in tens of thousands of people and now lets in millions of people. Okay, that's millions of people that Trump didn't let in. You can't say that it's just a continuation. It's him doing
it looks like we're on the chart. And then what happens is
it's him doing what the migrants who rushed the border at the end of Trump's administration thought he would do, which is why they rushed.
It looks like a continuation. It gets real high right away. And then for the rest of the Biden administration, it goes up and down and up and down. And they try shit, I gather, and didn't try enough soon enough. But I don't know why you think Kamala Harris...
didn't try anything until the end when they tried to muscle Mexico and cut a deal with Mexico, which is, hey, keep them away from the border until we're reelected. And then, who knows what's going to happen.
So anyway, it's all about immigration for you.
I mean, there was a great paragraph in Bret Stephens' endorsement of Harris on all the things that he thought were wrong about Harris. Part of he's I worry that she's obsessed with equity, that the idea that she would be admitted, go to national security meetings and worry about the gender bias in the description of female leaders, as opposed to whether we're going to have World War III or not, seems ridiculous. I worry that she's a terrible administrator. She's never really been an administrator. I worry that she doesn't really have any particular policy vision for the country. It's just sort of a hodgepodge of things. But I worry her court appointees are going to be terrible. I worry that she has.
God, compared to whose?
his impulses towards
compared to
censorship.
who's? I mean, who do you think Trump will appoint as Supreme Court? I mean,
I think
we've seen. I mean, you know, we've had some pretty bad.
He'll probably appoint Kimberly Guilfoyle. He'll. This is
right.
This is traditional. This is the traditional
That's
nominee.
What I mean.
Where, okay, you have your majority. Now you're going to appoint your total lackey. But
that's what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying.
This is when Bush tried to appoint his own personal
Whereas
lawyer.
Kamala will just play constituency politics. And so it won't be a black woman. That was the last one. You know, it'll just be like Trump's Supreme Court appointments, as you just said, are scarier than Kamala's.
No, I don't think they're scary. I think his next appointee could be unqualified. I think Kavanaugh is a very sensible, solid choice. He's almost always on the right side, as far as I can see. I don't know all that much about the Chevron decision, I must admit, but you know, on Roberts is proving to be a bit of a weak read. Alito's sort of crazy, and Gorsuch is completely erratic. But Kavanaugh is pretty solid.
Was Alito a Trump appointment? Was Alito a Trump appointment?
No, sorry. And Barrett seems pretty solid. Alito was a Bush appointment.
Okay. So is it too soon for me to engage in recriminations, do you think? Is that bad luck if I start assuming that Kamala will lose and complain?
Go ahead. Well,
I'd say two things. I mean, first of all, as I said, first of all, would you, I mean, look, I blame Biden above all for the mess we're in. A year and a half ago, he should have had enough self-awareness to say, you know, I should get out of the way. If not, Jill should have. And Mickey, you will vouch for me. I was saying that a year and a half ago. I was saying Biden's too old. It'll be a disaster. He should step down, and we should have an open primary. I've been saying this forever.
I still think that's true. I think that's totally true, but on Ezra Klein grounds, which is he couldn't wage the campaign effectively, and he was going to lose. And we should have had a primary, and we shouldn't have had this weird woman foisted on us by the powers that be.
Well, that's what I said. That's what I said. We should have it.
No, but I don't think
a year and a half ago. So did Ezra.
You also said he was incapable of being president. I don't think now he's incapable of being president.
He's close. He's close.
I mean, this is the way his thing about you know, the only garbage I can think of are Trump supporters.
Yeah,
very, very similar in tone to the things he would occasionally pop off with 37 years ago when he said, I think I have a higher IQ than you do, buddy. I mean, he just does that. That's the way he is. He's always been an asshole on occasion. So,
but the sentences used to be, it used to be, you didn't have to spend a whole night arguing about what he meant. That was a waste of time.
That's true. But
anyway, back to recriminations. So then, you know, when we were pushing finally successfully Biden to step down, you know, I was arguing against Kamala for reasons that I hope are apparent. I mean, here's the funny thing. I don't think she's shown herself to be unqualified to be president. I think she's a bad candidate who would be like a fine president in the sense that, you know, she'd do the job. She'd rely heavily on staff. She'd appoint smart people. I wouldn't like all the policies. In foreign policy, I wouldn't like either her or Trump, but it would be capably run. She'd give a good speech. She'd give the occasional press conference. It would be fine. She's a bad candidate who would be a fine president. What?
She doesn't give a good speech.
She does.
I agree that the best.
She gave 10 of them during that debate. That's why everybody said she won the debate. She's good at giving prepared text. She's good at presenting prepared text.
Doesn't do a lot for me.
It's not your cup of tea. You just don't like her. And that's the way I and a lot of people feel about Trump. But it's not like objectively bad presentation.
Bob, I grew up in a middle-class family.
You know, by the way, I'm getting the identity politics religion. I've been reading about the Scots-Irish. You know, that's the closest thing to my tribe.
We're awesome.
What? We're awesome.
You invented the steam engine.
Actually, I'm listening to Jim Webb's book, which is if there's one advocate of the Scots-Irish who could turn me against my own people, it's Jim Webb. That is like disgustingly celebratory and overly romanticized. But you know, Jim Webb, the former whatever he was, senator or whatever he was, congressman.
Yeah.
You know, he wrote this book on the Scots-Irish called "The Fighting People" or something.
Right.
It's not bad. Anyway, I digress. What?
Isn't there a classier book called Albion's Seed that makes the same argument?
I don't know. What's it called?
Albion's Seed, I think it's called.
A-L?
Bion apostrophe S seed. I think that's right. Anyway, there is a classier version of how great the Scots Irish are. And
Well, how did I get off onto the Scotch Irish or Scots Irish as your whatever your preference may be? How did I? These are my people. You know, they are. Webb would say they are the Trumpists. You know, which is consistent with my whole. You know,
I think they sort of are. But anyway, what were we
digress.
talking?
Let me. I was about to get to recriminations.
Okay.
So just the various times people should have done what I said and didn't. I mean, we don't have time for the complete list, as you know. That would be a marathon. But
I had a quick point to make before you get that. The best case for Kamala is the one you just stated, which is she'll be a competent creature of the staff around her.
That's
and
right.
The powers around her.
And
it would
be
much more confidence inspiring if they showed us who the staff was and who these people were, instead of putting this semi-competent front woman up and pretending she's the candidate. Let's see the apparatus. Let's see her handlers. Then I might vote for them because her handlers are probably better than Trump's handlers.
This is not totally unrelated to my, in some ways, my biggest, if most obscure recrimination and grievance, which is that I said, when it became clear it was going to be Kamala, I said on Twitter or whatever, this may sound crazy, but I'll tell you who she needs as a running mate. It's Chris Murphy, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Everybody said, no, you got to balance the ticket. You got to get this clown from Kentucky. What was his name? I forget. But you got to get Tim Walz. You got to get Josh Shapiro. But here's my argument.
Bashir is supposed to be a real person. He's not a clown.
Yeah, but he comes off as a fake, even though I'm sure the Southern accent is.
I've never seen
authentic.
Okay.
No, he comes off as it's almost as bad as when Josh Shapiro says y'all. But anyway, and you know, look, there were complications. I mean, Murphy would be up for re-election. I think probably with a Democratic governor of Connecticut, they could have found a way to keep the seat in Democratic hands. But anyway, leave that aside. Everyone said bad idea, but I'm here to tell you that he would have been worlds better than Tim Walz, because one of the big doubts about Kamala Harris is her gravitas, right? Like, is she really, you know, she speaks in these vague platitudes. She doesn't seem to really, you know, wrestle with the nuts and bolts of policy or even say much of anything specific with conviction. It's like, is there there? Do we want this kind of vague entity in the Oval Office? I think you need like the opposite of her on the ticket. What you don't need is a guy who goes around describing himself as a knucklehead to get out of various problems he got himself into, which is Tim Walz does not come off as the gravitas counterbalance. I like him and he has his virtues, but I honestly believe if you had a Chris Murphy to, you know, campaign with her and to talk serious policy and not get into any of the trouble that Tim Walz has gotten himself into, you'd be much better off.
The obvious pick would have been Shapiro because he also brings on the state of Pennsylvania.
No, but he alienates the left because he's you know, so strongly right-wingly pro-Israel and in favor of suppressing speech in the name of Israel. He wants to suppress it on campuses. I'm pretty sure he supports those anti-boycott laws, which I think the Supreme Court will even find unconstitutional eventually. So this is a problem Kamala's having anyway, of course, but he would have exacerbated it. And she is exacerbating it. But just, can I give one example of her incompetence? I'm sorry. I know this is bad. Look, if we had a huge audience, like if I was Joe Rogan, I'd be talking her up. I mean, she is a better president by far. She would be much better president than Trump. Let me be clear. But in terms of things that have driven me crazy, you know, somebody asked her about Gaza and so on, and she said it was something like, well, we have to start with the first and biggest tragedy, the October 7th attack. It wasn't quite that, or the most tragic story, the October 7th attack. And then she got around to lamenting the death of the, however many Palestinians, but she didn't have to call either of them the greater tragedy. That's just not smart. And this drove the young left further crazy when she put it that way. And she just does not think well on her feet. What's that?
Should she have? What should she have said?
She could have said, we have to start with, the original horrendous attack and that tragedy on October 7th. She didn't need to say, and maybe she didn't mean this, but it certainly was straightforwardly taken as meaning that the death of the 1,200 Israelis was a bigger tragedy than the death of the 42,000 Palestinians and the ongoing war crimes there. It's just getting unbelievable.
Well, she obviously meant what you said, but she didn't say it.
No, she explicitly. I'm just saying she doesn't think on her feet well.
Here's a question taken directly from Nonzero News.
Yeah.
You have a very good article about how, and this hasn't been covered really at all in the mainstream media that I've seen, the Biden administration really is planning nation building for Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
Connor
Eccles wrote that. One of our
Yeah. We have we're going to somehow remove Hezbollah from the equation and set up a new civilian government without Hezbollah and a new army without Hezbollah. And gee, isn't this going to be great? And you point out that this seems reckless and doomed, or Connor points out that it's reckless and doomed. And the big question is, does Harris go along with that? What does she? Or I'm curious. What do you think?
I think she would not, in a million years, say that she doesn't. Clearly, right now, she's just not. I mean, first of all,
pretty big flaw in a leader. Trump has no compunctions about saying he doesn't go along with something that the rest of the bureaucracy is for.
Oh, he wouldn't say he's against this, Mickey, because what this is Israel's ongoing destruction of everything in sight. That's what this is. Israel's plan is to, he's not going to disagree with Israel on what you do about Hezbollah.
Right, but there's two issues. One, do you destroy Hezbollah and all those border communities to keep Israel safe? And the other thing is, you try to set up a positive new government in Lebanon, or you just let the chips fall where they fall.
Even Trump is not going to say,
and I think he might not do the second one. Even
Trump is not going to say, and then let chaos ensue. He may think it, but even Trump is not going to say that, and he's just not going to disagree.
The generals and the diplomats all came to me with these fancy plans about how we're going to be involved in Lebanon for 100 years. I say we don't want to do that. Could easily say that. He's tried to say it before ineffectively.
Right now, neither candidate is gonna do anything that seems as if it might piss off, mainstream pro-Israel constituency. And Trump is more dangerous in the long run because he'll be fine with ethnic cleansing. When he says Israel should finish the job, I think I know what he means. And the ethnic cleansing has happened. There's a good editorial in Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper, about how bad it's gotten.
The ethnic cleansing meaning turning North Gaza into part of Israel.
And the West Bank. I mean, it's ongoing in the West Bank. But yeah, the ethnic cleansing of North Gaza is probably underway, and Trump would be totally fine with it.
Well, it's almost as if Netanyahu stayed in Jared Kushner's bedroom when he visited the United States.
They're close.
So
anyway, I'm.
As long as we're in Israel, I had one point to make.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it obvious that Netanyahu wants to go after the nuclear sites, and won't he? Everybody's saying, "Oh, well, he was this last site, which happened to take out all their air defenses against the strike against the nuclear facilities, was measured and was a step towards peace." No, it wasn't. It was a step toward attacking the nuclear sites.
Well, but he'd rather that Iran retaliated. That would make it a lot easier for him geopolitically. I mean, the Israeli people will be fine with it regardless, but and it's not as if he's shown many signs of caring what the world thinks of Israel. And this is why I think he's doing I think Israel is doing such long-term damage to itself right now. But
They launched 120 missiles at his country. Well, but how much more provocation does he need?
Well, but the original escalations, Mickey, these didn't get as, he was goading Iran all along.
Right, and they took the bait.
Well, okay, but they were look, he really did kill people on Iranian soil. He really did bomb the Iranian embassy compound in Syria, okay? He did these things that are like acts of war. And, Iran doesn't have the capacity that Israel has. Israel has the capacity inside Iran to assassinate people. Iran doesn't have that capability. So when he assassinates somebody on Iranian soil, as he did, and that was one of the two things that provoked the most recent missile attack, Iran feels like, well, if we want to get his attention and say this is unacceptable, we're going to have to lob a lot of missiles. And they're right. They're right. That it's going to take that. And even that apparently didn't do the job. But there's just an asymmetry of capabilities that makes them either accept a never-ending series of provocations and actual acts of war by Israel, or respond in what seems like disproportionate fashion. Although, look, they killed fewer people in Israel. I think, one hapless Palestinian had debris fall on them or something, than Israel killed in this most recent strike. They killed 4 Iranians, and everybody says, oh, that's a restrained attack when you kill 4 people. When you kill 1, that's out of control. Iran knew that you've got this, largely American provided dome that means that, for every 10 missiles they fire, they can hope that 1 will land. They focused on military targets, and, I'm not defending it. I mean, both sides are a problem, but
you see, it's an interesting question. What should you do? What should your country do when you're in an obviously inferior military position, as Ukraine was and as Iran is?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the answer is not pretend that you're the other side's equal, but give a lot of ground, which I don't see Iran doing.
Mickey, they've given a lot of ground. In the last round, they let Israel have the last strike, okay? And they're going to do it again this time. That is a kind of submission. But they're also saying, look, too far. I mean, look, Israel can rest assured, because Iran did this last missile attack, Israel can rest assured that if they go after the nukes, there will be a lot more ballistic missiles coming over. And they may decide they can endure that. They can. The truth is they can. They can endure it.
So when is he going to have a better chance to take out the nukes than now? Never. So obviously he's going to do it.
Well, you mean within the next, he may wait until after the election. I wonder whether there was some kind of explicit deal with the Biden administration. Not that if I were Biden, I'd trust him to abide by it. But, it is geopolitically harder for him, given that Iran has not responded. And it looks like Iran is not going to respond in conspicuous fashion anytime soon, judging by what they're saying.
Okay. Well, you're not ruling it out then. You're not saying, oh, I thought you were going to come back at me and say, oh, this is why he cannot attack the nukes. And you're not saying.
Well, he can attack them. He does need American support to really do, I gather, I'm told, extensive damage to really set back the nuclear program very significantly. Now, and this is another difference. Trump will go, yeah, sure. You don't even need to check. Bibi, don't waste my time clearing these things with me. We'll help, sure. Just say the word.
Well, maybe he's waiting to see who wins the election. That's possible.
That's quite possible, because he knows Biden's. That's it. Yeah, Biden's not going to help him now. Biden is probably not going to help him with an attack on the nuclear sites after the election. Kamala's probably not going to help him. Trump will be like, fine. So when you say if not now, when, the answer is after late January if Trump wins this election. That's
okay. When. Okay. Well, that's I meant, like, if he says, okay, this whole round of confrontation after the attacks of the 6th is not going to result in us taking out their nukes. No, he's not going to accept that.
But I think most people say that if Iran wants a nuclear weapon, and right now they're not trying to build a nuclear weapon, they're enriching uranium to higher levels than they were before Trump got out of the nuclear deal. I'm sorry. I won't revisit all this, but Jesus, that guy is so fucking irresponsible on the international stage. It's scary. It's scary. And you really should factor that in. I know immigration matters to you. And look, Kamala is no dream on foreign policy, although we have reason to think she'll be at least a little better than Biden. But Trump is a nightmare.
I had a plan for Kamala to win my vote, which I'm sure you read, Bob. Which is she should say, okay, this immigration thing. Obviously, immigration is the issue that's killing her. It's not just me; it is the issue that's killing her. All she has to say is, look, it's a very contentious thing. We need a robust debate. I'm still for amnesty. I'm still for taking in a lot of immigrants. I still think people should be able to come and claim, asylum in mass numbers. But we really need to talk about it for a while. So I'm going to impose a pause in immigration for 4 years, and then if I'm reelected, we will take action. But for 4 years, there's a pause. You don't have to worry about immigration on my watch. I'm going to put a cork in the bottle for now, temporarily, and that's that. And that's sort of what Trudeau is doing in Canada. And he's in a similar jam. He overdid it on immigration, and he has said we overdid it on immigration, and now he has a partial pause, not a whole pause. He's cutting it by about a third. But Kamala doesn't do anything like that. And if she was for a full pause, I would probably vote for her.
Well, yeah. I mean, I saw that newsletter of yours, and when I saw that, here's how I imagined our conversation today playing out. I thought I would say, so Mickey, you're voting for Trump, and you'd be like, no, I'm undecided. Me, Trump supporter, me responsible for the next 4 years of disaster after Trump is elected. No, my hands are clean. And I would start, and I'd be like going nuts, of course. And you'd say, oh, by the way, in fact, I just gave Kamala some campaign advice. And of course, your advice is become Trump. Stop immigration. And, it's
Trump. It's more than Trump. Trump hasn't. It outflanks Trump. Trump is for more legal immigration. This pause would apply to legal immigration, but it would not be Trump in that he doesn't have mass deportation. So it's the best of both worlds for him. But yeah, you basically got it down, except she's not becoming Trump in every other possible way. She could still do healthcare. She can still try the child tax credit. She can still appoint Supreme Court justices. She still pursues her whole foreign policy. It's basically everything other than immigration. She could be as democratic as she could get away with, and I would oppose a lot of that, but she wouldn't be taking any of that off the table. So it would be a great bargain for her. It would, if she'd done it a month ago, she would be way ahead by
now. Well, maybe, but you realize that at this point, she cannot do this like 180 without getting laughed out of the election and annoying significant parts of her.
Well, the question is, would it
hurt
the down ballot races? And I don't know about that. I'm always for making less. I was an anticipatory filerist. I always thought that people should make last minute changes and that the electorate would accommodate them. For example, at Newsweek, John Alter and I wrote an editorial calling for Dukakis to drop out with like 3 weeks to go so that Lloyd Bentsen could be the candidate, because Lloyd Bentsen would be a stronger candidate, which he would have been if he had, but maybe 3 weeks was too late. But I was never very sensitive to those concerns.
What do you think Trump? Oh, I just had a genius idea that the Kamala campaign should operationalize. There had been speculation about what Trump meant when what did he say to Michael Johnson that was cryptic, like, oh, wait till they see the surprise we've cooked up or something like that, right? You saw this.
Something like that. I didn't follow that close.
Okay, so they should take this thing Johnson just said that you mentioned, we're going to end Obamacare, and put the two together and say, now we know. Now we know what
even if it's bullshit, that would be an effective device.
Totally.
I agree.
This is one of so many reasons I should be part of the Kamala campaign.
I think they're going to do that, Bob.
I'll bet they don't. I'll bet they don't. It's too good. It's too good for them.
Okay,
with all the humility, and you know that I'm above all a humble person, but it's too good for them.
Okay. You're not impressed by the Jeffrey Goldberg revelations?
Remind me. I mean, I saw
he had General Kelly saying that Trump was a fascist, basically. It was a
Oh,
week.
Jeff,
It was a week sort of encore of his last go around, which was Trump mocks servicemen and says they're suckers and losers.
yeah.
He did a sort of a second tour of those generals, and they all said Trump was a fascist. And the media pressed it for all it was worth, and Trump and Kamala scheduled the whole speech around it until she realized at the last minute that maybe it was not a good idea to have this be the only string in her bow.
Well, first of all, I'm disappointed because at first I thought you meant revelations about Jeffrey Goldberg. That would have made me much happier. But
No.
it seems to me that first of all, she did. Yeah.
That awaits Ruth Shalit's lawsuit against him.
We need more than that's going to uncover.
I don't know. She won summary judgment. She has discovery powers now.
Ooh.
You can discover a lot.
Ooh.
Anyway,
I'm warming up to Ruth's side of this argument.
Okay.
But Kamala did call him Trump a fascist. It was kind of a Biden-like moment where somebody said, "So is he a fascist?" And it seems like she felt like, I've got to be the new decisive Kamala and say, yes, he's a fascist.
Yeah, right, right.
But I think, it seems to me like I think maybe this is a mistake the campaign has made. They got kind of trolled out of their strategy. Their strategy was be upbeat, do kind of a Rose Garden strategy, give speeches, give the occasional, well-orchestrated interview. You've done the debate. He's the one who's afraid to debate a second time, so they can't say you're afraid of exposure. You do some interviews. But it seems to me they got worried because the polling gap started narrowing, and they did two things. First of all, they reacted to the allegation that she was afraid to really go out and mix it up. And it seems like the more she mixed it up, the more trouble she got into, because she's just not very good at that. And she went more and more negative on Trump. And I guess they've got data showing they have some reason to think that's going to work, maybe to get out the vote. But
her initial strategy was, as you say, was to dump Meachimism, dump the end of democracy is dying, and focus on positive things. And then there was sort of she failed to make progress in the polls, and the conventional way of putting it was she failed to seal the deal because, in fact, she is a very unimpressive candidate. So then they reverted back to, the Trump is a fascist thing. They wanted to avoid what I call the Moby Grape problem, but it's been discussed in other terms on Halpern's podcast. Moby Grape, remember, if you don't remember, was a great rock group in the 60s, maybe the most talented collection. And their first album was so good, it had 6 singles and 6 songs that were good enough to be singles. And they decided to release them all at once. Unprecedented. We're releasing 6 singles all at once. And they cannibalized each other so that none of them became hits. You couldn't publicize 6 singles enough. So none of them were publicized enough.
Well, you're dividing your constituency. I mean, they're going to,
Right. The idea is you need one message.
Right.
You can't have 3 messages. You need one message, and you have to hammer it home day after day. And so they decided their one message was going to be Trump is a fascist. Now they have abandoned that, and they're focusing on 3 messages. Trump is a fascist. I'm good for the economy, and abortion, although abortion was sort of always there. And I think they're right. I think one of the implications of the filer faster thesis is you have room for more than one message now. You have room for 3 messages. But I think that's what they were thinking. But the reason they did it is because she was flatlining in the polls. They didn't. It's like Trump. They didn't keep picking. They didn't keep picking up supporters.
But flatlining wouldn't have killed her because she was appreciably ahead. That the polls then started to narrow, and I think the shift in strategy is one reason. I mean,
no, I think the sagging came before the shift in strategy. Why would they shift in strategy if it was working? They wouldn't do that.
Well, yeah, it wasn't working, but it wasn't working as badly as what they shifted to. I mean,
keep in mind, they have better polls than we do. That's the whole Mark Halpern thing. Mark Halpern's whole thing was I have talked to the people in both camps. They have internal polls that are much more sophisticated and better than our polls we see in public. And their polls show that Trump is gaining. And that is why Kamala shifted. And that's why the Trump people are so damn confident.
No, he was gaining. That's true.
This has not turned up in any real dramatic way in the public polls, but a little bit. But, for all we know, Kamala was cratering in her private polls. We just don't know.
Does Halpern say that the polls now show Trump winning? The private polls.
He's tempered that. I think he would still say that he thinks Trump is going to win, but he's dramatically tempered it. He no longer says if trends continue, we will know on election day that Trump has won.
Can I try to force you to defend a couple of reprehensible people briefly?
Sure. Ryan Girdusky?
I was going to get to that, but could we do Tucker Carlson first? It'll be
I don't
better.
think Ryan Girdusky is reprehensible. I'm happy to.
I'm starting to wonder, but we'll get to that. So Tucker, first of all, did you hear his weird daddy's home rant?
I heard about it.
Oh, man.
He says crazy things every now and then these days.
No, but this was like so weirdly psychosexual. It's like, so the whole thing was Trump is daddy and America needs disciplining, okay? Mainly the people on the left, of course, the dissolute people on the left.
Spank us. He's going to come and spank us.
He's going to spank us. And he mentions the people that daddy has to spank. And one of them is, I think he used the phrase adolescent girl, his adolescent daughter. He clearly establishes we're talking about a teenage girl. And he says, and daddy's going to spank you because you've been a bad girl. And no, I'm not going to say this hurts me more than it hurts you. It's going to hurt you because you've been a bad girl. And daddy's going to spank you. He goes on and on. It's really fucking weird. You really should go listen to this. And then there's the weird, you'll probably say this is being overblown, but what does he say? Kamala, like Samoan, and then some other ethnicity she's not, and then low IQ, that thing. Like, first of all, go ahead and do the ritual defense that it's not that bad. Over to you.
Well, I don't defend the low IQ thing. I don't think you should attack people for their IQ.
But he should call them Samoan as if that's an insult.
What he meant by that is just she's this weird polyglot ancestry and who knows what the fuck it is.
Thank you. This was your job to defend what he said. But let me get on to my actual critique, which is that this whole thing, this is why he's so dangerous. This whole thing is in the service of, if you look at what he's saying there's no way that if she wins, it's not rigged. Because look, how could this candidate win? She's so bad. And her being Samoan / whatever low IQ is part of the reason she couldn't, of course, possibly win. And first of all, this is stupid. Bad candidates win all the time in American politics. It's the rule. And secondly, though, it is so irresponsible to rev these people up so that they will take to the streets if she wins. Tucker Carlson is just a horrible, horrible person. And I defy you to contest that claim in this context.
Again, I'm the guy who quit.
Okay, thank you. I declare victory. That was a long enough pause.
He has some good days and bad days, and that was a bad day. And I don't think he should be stirring people up. He does need to have followers after the election. So maybe he has some long-term eye on, I'll have a constituency after the election if I keep it stirred up. But they shouldn't stir people up like that. I agree. It's wildly irresponsible. I had something else to say, but I forgot. Go ahead.
Okay, we can move on to Ryan.
Who are the next horrible people I have to condemn?
Well, I don't know how bad Ryan Girdusky is. I'm starting to have my doubts. But the interesting thing about him is, as you may recall, back when we were doing this podcast regularly, you repeatedly quoted him. There were two people that I jokingly said, "Are you on their payroll? Are you doing PR for them?" One was Girdusky, and the other, who's the guy who writes the newsletter that you respect so highly? Some newsletter.
John Ellis?
Yes, the John Ellis newsletter. So anyway, and you would always pronounce Ryan Girdusky emphatically as if you're trying to bring him to our attention. He's this important figure. I had never heard of him. I kept not hearing about him from anybody but you. Finally, this week I heard about him, and the reason is he got canceled by CNN. He got kicked off as a commentator. I'm not here to defend that decision. I have no view on that, but it does seem to me that what they canceled him for is kind of weird. Okay, so
I know Ryan Judusky. He's a friend of mine. He's a very smart guy. He has a lot of go get him, go get him energy.
Too much, I would say.
He's not just he doesn't just put out a newsletter and is a pundit on TV and and a constant commentator in Twitter Spaces. I don't know why, but he also runs something called the 776 Project, which is actually unseating liberal woke school board members across the country. So he's actually having an impact on who governs us in a concrete way. So all that is pretty much to his credit, as far as I can see. He's an excitable Italian guy, and this was a ladder of escalation where he was fighting with Mehdi Hassan about who I don't know enough, and his final jab, which obviously he had prepared ahead of time, something he said, Hassan said, I'm a Palestinian, and Judusky said, well, I hope your beaver doesn't go off.
No, I don't think Mehdi's Palestinian. I think he's South Asian. He said, I'm a supporter of the Palestinians. I mean, the way it unfolded is first Judusky says, they're talking about, Hassan is saying, he says something like, look, if you guys don't want to be, they're having an argument about the allegation that Trump people are a bunch of Nazis. And Hassan says something like, I joined it mid. I mean, I haven't seen the previous part, but it's, he's starting to say, look, if you guys don't want to be called Nazis, you shouldn't say things, and then presumably he's about to cite some things that were said at the Trump rally or something, who knows? And Judusky chimes in and says to Mehdi Hassan, you've been called an anti-Semite more than anyone at this table, which to me seems like a kind of a way to slime a guy without you being the one who calls him. But anyway, right. Mehdi says, yeah, by you. And Judusky says, no, I've never called you an anti-Semite. And then as Judusky saying that, Mehdi says, I'm a supporter of the Palestinians, so I'm used to it. In other words, being called an anti-Semite. Well, so he says, I'm a supporter of the Palestinians. And Judusky says, yeah, well, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. Now, first of all, what does he mean by that?
It's a good line if it weren't,
it's not a good line. What is the joke?
Over the line?
What?
As Louis C.K. pointed out, and I guess he sort of means this ironically, he didn't say, I hope your beaver does go off. He said, I hope your beaver doesn't go off. So he toned it down a little from what it could have been. But it's not something you should say to somebody on a show, unless Mehdi is a big supporter of Hezbollah. Then it seems to me it's a fair shot. I don't know what he does. If he is a big supporter of actual Hezbollah attacks, I do not know. So I assume it was over the line. Ryan apologized, and then they kicked him off, which he shouldn't have done. It was words said in anger over the line.
Before he apologized, though, it continued. He says, well, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. And Mehdi says, like, wait, what did you say? And Judusky persists and says, well, are you a supporter of Hamas? Which, first of all, is kind of weird. As you just suggested, it's Hezbollah that had the beepers.
He said Hamas, not Hezbollah?
Yeah, he said, are you a supporter of Hamas? So, in other words, what he seemed, if you can get anything logical out of this at all, he's saying supporters of the Palestinians must be supporters of Hamas, which is, of course, the line that's been used to suppress speech on campuses and so on. But
it was sort of like the Buckley-Vidal debate where Buckley says, shut up, you queer, before I sock you in the face. I mean, like, that was over the line. It was also really good TV. People shouldn't say things that are over the line. But you don't kick them off the network for that.
But I still don't totally get the line. I mean, I'm assuming when he says, are you a supporter of Hamas, he thinks he's trying to allege that anyone who vociferously supports Palestinians supports Hamas. But I still don't like the beeper line, especially given that, like, look, a quick refresher, folks. Hamas is Sunni Palestinians. Hezbollah is Shia Lebanese,
Right.
and they are the ones who had the beepers. Now, their leadership has stepped in support of Hamas, but there's plenty of guys who had beepers go off who aren't supporters of Hamas.
It was supposed to be a funny cutting line, and there are these allegations that Hassan is being paid by Qatar and is enmeshed in a bureaucracy that ultimately supports, I guess, terrorist groups. I don't know about Qatar. I don't know how horrible they are. I don't think that's enough to say he's somehow part of Hezbollah, but that he was trying to trigger the argument that people like John Podhoretz make that Hassan is compromised. He's a paid operative.
Podhoretz is a truly vile person. I'm sorry. I mean, is there anyone credible who has made this allegation about Mehdi Hassan?
Oh, I think a lot of people have made it. Yeah, but it's not
there
clear
any
that
evidence?
It's damning. That he was once paid by an outlet that was supported by Qatar. You know, I mean, so what? But so I don't know.
Let me tell you something.
You want to know why he said that? I think that's why he said it.
Half the people at think tanks in Washington have been paid by somebody who got supported.
Oh yeah. I got into Twitter fights with both John Podhoretz and Neera Tanden this week. So there.
That is
I must be doing something right.
You must be. Those are two of my least favorite people. I mean, honestly,
I like John Podhoretz, but
Podhoretz is nuts. He's always flying off the handle and doing bizarre name calling. I mean, saying that whatever he said about Mehdi Hassan sounds like it's par for the course for him. He's done it to me. He's a nut. He needs therapy.
If you argue with him, there's a 50% chance you will be accused of genocide by the end of the argument.
He's also an indictment of nepotism. For people who don't know, if his father had not been a famous intellectual, he'd be, I don't know what he'd be doing, but it wouldn't be this thing.
He's extremely talented, and
he's not talented. What's he good at?
Oh, he's a really good writer, and he puts out a good magazine. Whether or not the guy he replaced would have put out a better magazine, I don't know. But he puts out a really good magazine.
What is it? Commentary? What is he doing now?
Yeah, commentary.
Commentary. You're calling commentary a good magazine? Oh, Mickey.
Kinsley at one point said it was the best magazine in America after the New Republic faded. But what he meant was it had the best combination of politics coverage and culture coverage.
Well, John Podhoretz wasn't editing it then, was he?
Yeah, he was.
Was he?
Yeah, because I told him, and he was very flattered.
Sad.
Anyway, I like him even if he's gaga on immigration and said I had betrayed my people, Bob. Because if we had looser immigration laws, a lot of Jews could have come here in anticipation of Hitler, which is actually true.
Podhoretz said you betrayed your people?
Yes.
See, that's the kind of thing you would say. That's what I mean. This reminds me of your tolerating all of Trump's bullshit. There are just some things that should be over the line. Like, and for Podhoretz to just repeatedly corrupt public discourse by accusing everyone he disagrees with of the vilest things is just like, I don't understand how you can say, yeah, he's making a real contribution to American culture. We would be better off if he would just shuffle off into the...
He's a hothead. He dropped that charge. Anyway, to his credit. As you know, Dave Weigel wrote this article about how whatever happens, America is moving to the right. And I'm not so sure I agree with that because, the two most important issues to me, as you know, are the child tax credit, which could turn into a welfare scheme, and immigration. And in both of those, under either president, if Harris or Trump wins, we could easily move to the left. I mean, Trump's running mate has proposed doubling the child tax credit. He hasn't said you could get it if you don't work, but he hasn't said you couldn't. So we don't know how that's going to turn out. That could easily turn out to be a big liberal boondoggle. And it's entirely conceivable, that's been pointed out all over the place, that Trump, if he was in office, could agree to an amnesty. He's been hinting that for years and years, that ultimately, I want to be the one who frees the slaves. I want to be the one who brings an amnesty to the dreamers, at least. And so he could easily sell out the cause as a lame duck with nothing to worry about. I think the chances are less of that Kamala will sell out the cause, but I deny that it's necessarily the case that America will be moving to the right. Anyway, I think I point that out. In case anybody worried that I was not obsessed with immigration and the child tax credit.
I think, this reminds me, I mean, you kind of hinted at one of the possible saving graces of Trump is that he's so transactional that if he really believed it to be his final term, and I don't think he has great concern for the future of the Republican Party or any, the continuation of anything as a result of his administration other than him and his family's interests. But if he were actually convinced it was his final term, he might just turn to all his donors and say, fuck you, I got your money, I got elected. That wouldn't be beyond Trump, but I don't think we can actually hope for that.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of a double cross like that, have you noticed how awful early voting has turned out? Early voting, first, it takes away the secret ballot. It doesn't take away the secret ballot. But with the drop boxes, they're being blown up. Okay, why put these vulnerable drop boxes out there that could be blown up? Let's not do that.
Are they being blown up? I missed this story.
Okay. And they've discovered as we went on air, they just allegedly, and I have my doubts, discovered a pro-Gaza note saying, all the drop boxes are going to be blown up, signed, pro-Gaza, pro-Hamas people.
That could be that sounds like false flag. That sounds like false flag.
It could go either. It could not be true at all. But one thing it does open up, it opens up the possibility of an incredible double cross. What if, so you have a campaign, okay? You're like Kamala Harris, you're all in for all these liberal causes. You bank your early votes. Early votes are all the liberal core supporters, the base. They all vote early. Once their votes are in, you double cross them. You move to the center and get all the center votes. And then the early people want to take their votes back, but they can't. It's too late. So why have a system that allows that sort of double cross? It's crazy.
Yeah, I saw your tweet or something to that effect, and it was a clever idea. I mean, not all that practical probably for various reasons, but I mean, if a candidate had a very clear idea about the kinds of people who had in fact voted, but I mean, that's the thing, though. It'd have to be such a dramatic double cross because the kinds of people who voted early are the kinds of people who are just about joined to you at the hip. They'd support you through thick and thin. So, I don't know, to actually do a shift that would have kept them from voting for you, I don't know. That would have to be something that would seem to undermine your credibility broadly.
Well, Gaza would be such an issue if you were a candidate that was relatively, pro Gaza, wanted to restrain Israel. You could bank a whole lot of votes and then betray them. That's the sort of issue that people are single issue voters about. You could also do about abortion.
I suppose.
Abortion is a single issue vote. You could say, I hate abortion, and then, and then at the end of the campaign, soften your position. It's basically what Trump has done in fast motion.
What is your prediction about, let's say if Kamala just loses one of the three kind of traditionally central battleground states, meaning Michigan, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin, I guess you could say, if we concede the South to Trump, if she only loses one, which would mean she lost the presidency, which one will it be?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all. She can make it up in the South.
No, I said if we assume Trump holds the South, she needs all three of those states.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but you can't assume that their polls showing her ahead in North Carolina now. That's supposed to be a tough one for her to win, but it's conceivable she would win Nevada, and what's the other one? Georgia. I totally wouldn't bet any money on Trump ever winning anything in Georgia. He always loses. So she can make up a loss of one of the
right.
northern walls, blue wall states,
right,
and the most likely one is Pennsylvania. It looks like.
right.
Polls are showing her. It used to be Michigan. The polls are showing her doing okay in Michigan, doing okay in Wisconsin, but dead even in Pennsylvania.
So you're saying if she the one of those three you think she's most likely to lose is Pennsylvania?
Correct, and she can make up for that by winning North Carolina and Nevada. And if she does that, she wins again.
Yeah, but I mean,
so,
if she, Pennsylvania and Michigan will carry very different morals for the future, right? If it's Michigan, the lesson will, according to some, will be: look, there's such a thing as being too pro-Israel in American politics. If it's Pennsylvania, everybody will be saying, "See, I told you it should have been Josh Shapiro," which is in some ways,
that'll be the first reaction, but the second reaction will be, "Gee, Michigan really hates electric cars. Stop pushing electric cars," which I think will be accurate. And Pennsylvania, I guess they'll think, I don't know. The obvious thing was you fail to appeal to the deplorables.
I think the most commonly said thing will be she should have chosen Josh Shapiro if she loses only Pennsylvania among those three. But
that's the first thing. I was trying to think of what the second thing would be. The Nick Lemon has a pretty interesting piece in the New Yorker, just came out, about how successful Biden has really been. He has all these industrial policies, starting chip factories, supposedly creating blue-collar jobs. I think it's right as far as it goes. I don't think that makes him the most successful president since FDR. I mean, Johnson passed Medicare. It seems to me Medicare is bigger than all that. But what do I know? But
the chip factories are not going swimmingly.
I thought they were doing better
now. I think the jury's very much out. We'll see. I mean, it seems to me the manifestly, the part of Biden's tech policy that bothers me more is the chip war on China. Have you heard anybody to say this obviously true point, which is that, because what the chip war against China did is Biden, it used to be that advanced chips went out of the world's most advanced chips, left that factory in Taiwan, and some went to China and some went to the West. Biden changed that through restrictions so that now they only go to the West. And given the fact that most people say very credibly, I think that a war would enduringly put that factory out of commission, this reduces the downside to China of invading Taiwan because they're not getting the advanced chips anyway out of that factory. I mean, the factory will probably get taken out of commission by war, quite possibly forever. And now it just objectively, obviously makes more sense to invade. Have you heard anybody? I just want to hear if you heard anybody make that argument.
No, it's actually a pretty good point. We should have made this a precious jewel the Chinese wouldn't want to destroy. On the other hand, they could just invade the country and take control of the factory.
No, they can't for two reasons. First of all, the U.S. would probably bomb it on the way out. But the other funny thing about this factory is the chip making equipment, which comes from the Netherlands, is so complicated that it cannot function without ongoing tech support from the Netherlands. Okay. It's like you can pull the plug on it remotely, in effect. But in any event, the U.S., if it looked like China was going to win the war, we would bomb the factory probably. This to me is such an indictment of the foreign policy establishment. I finally found an expert who agrees with me. This Paul Triolo, he's on my podcast a couple of weeks ago. People should check it out. But it's like all these China hawks. It's like, how can this escape their consciousness? This is so obvious.
Anyway, good point. The other interesting point Nick makes is that a lot of the high administration officials like Brian Deese, who are doing this industrial policy thing, who Nick portrays as very competent, and are doing it because they realized with Trump's election they had lost the heartland, they had lost the support of less educated non-college whites in the heartland, and they set about to regaining it with all these blue collar projects, have moved to the countryside. They've moved to Portland, Maine. They've moved to the middle of nowhere. They've moved to Ohio. They don't live in D.C. anymore. And my point is, are we sure that they're doing that because they want to live in the heartland and not because they're fleeing dysfunctional, crime-ridden Democratic cities? Anyway, that was my point.
That's a good.
I was thinking of the middle of. I was thinking of the middle of Pennsylvania and why Democrats would lose because they've lost the middle of Pennsylvania, and that's why.
It's a good question.
So, anyway, 2 weeks ago, Dan Turrentine, who is the Democrat on one of Halpern's podcasts, was saying, "Look, I think Harris better win more than one of these Sun Belt, more than one of these Sun Belt states, because she might lose 2 of the Rust Belt states, 2 of the Blue Wall states. So that's Pennsylvania and Michigan, or Pennsylvania and Wisconsin." He's not saying that anymore. So I just think she's better off than she was 2 weeks ago.
I don't know. I think I don't see it in the public polls. I don't see it at all in either
Look
the
at the latest
RCP average or the Nate Silver average.
But the RCP first of all, is diminishing for Michigan and Wisconsin, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think even there you don't see any favorable trend in any of those 3 states for her over the last few days. But who knows? I mean, of course, it's a rolling average. So the average you see for all these states is like going back, I don't know, a week or so, and maybe the most recent, most credible polls.
Well, that's what I was looking at. There's the Trump polls are getting old. So I have 3 more topics to go to. One of them is sex.
So let's do that, because I feel like I could take a nap. So something needs to wake me up.
Let's save that. Okay.
No. Now I need sex now. Go.
Well, we've been waiting. There are 4 sex stories that are bubbling under the news. One is.
Are you going to bring up the Emhoff thing? Because I was gonna chastise you for that.
One of them, there's the nanny thing, okay, which is pretty much accepted that it happened.
That he got a nanny pregnant?
It's accepted that he had an affair with the nanny. He apparently claimed at one point that she faked the pregnancy to try to get money out of him. She apparently at one point, this is according to one source who went out with him, said that she got pregnant and he was so mean to her that she had a miscarriage. But there is no secret Emhoff love child.
Wait, this is sex? This isn't sex. I wanted something titillating. This is like about pregnancy. That's what happens after sex.
Bob, also, let me explain to you. First you have sex, and you have pregnancy.
Yeah. Go ahead.
There's the slap. There's
that's not sex. That's violence.
Okay, the same woman who described the stuff about the pregnancy, false pregnancy, said that he slapped her, and I sort of think it's true, but there hasn't been a second slap. In other words, nobody else so far has come forward and said, well, he slapped me too. So he was really drunk at the time. It's possible he has a credible argument that it was just a one-off slap. Hardest.
Well, he's not making. I assume he's not making that argument. He's presumably denying the whole thing.
Yes, he had an aide deny the whole thing. He did not go on record. The third thing is the Tim Walz romance with a daughter of a CCP official. Did you follow that?
Well, who among us hasn't done that?
Well, plus, this is before he was married, and
yeah. I would say, what relevance do any of these things have to the question of whether Kamala Harris would make a good president?
Well, the first one is relevant in that they're propping up Emhoff in completely phony artificial PR fashion as this avatar of the new manhood and the feminist man, and that's bullshit. If he goes around hitting women and knocking up the nanny, he's the same old man we're used to, and I think that's true. I think that he is the same. But
Mickey,
whether he knocks up the nanny or not,
we know that. However, any presidential campaign is depicting the spouse of the candidate is just a bunch of bullshit. So this doesn't.
Well, this is more.
I doubt Trump has leveled with us about Melania's history. But it's like, who cares?
Kamala's campaign is way more of a confection and phony than other campaigns. Trump may be lying about Melania, but he's the sort of guy who would cheat on his wife. So he's not really fooling anybody, and he is the sort of guy who will.
No, but he's lying about it all. He lied.
Intimidate Mexico into closing the border. So
no, but he has lied about a ton of stuff.
Right? But lying is different than creating a complete fake persona.
Wait a second.
He doesn't write. He's not running for office saying, like Jimmy Carter saying, "I'm the most honest president you'll ever have. I will never lie to you." He ain't doing that. Okay, so you sort of know who you are. He's not fooling.
He's never said. He constantly lies about his history, about everything. It's complete fabrication.
But
I win. No, 3-second rule. 3-second rule. If you're flummoxed for 3 seconds, the other guy wins.
Kamala is unless you talk about abortion, she's sort of a cipher, and you don't know where she stands on anything, and everything about her is constructed. She hasn't really
Trump has been consistent on abortion for the last. Whereas Trump has been consistent on abortion for the last 20, 30 years, right? He's always been an evangelical anti-abortionist, right? It's all bullshit, Mickey. It's like, but my point is like, and this is what, like, you spend your time on Twitter on this very scandal about Kamala's husband, and it's like, I mean, look, you just do have a tabloid in your defense. You have a tabloid instinct, and there's nothing wrong with that. I have a little one myself, but I don't see how you can argue that this is really relevant to the campaign, to whether
relevant. They're portraying
Kamala or Trump.
They're in an illicit conspiracy with the media to say anything pro Kamala, and a good example of it is the way the media is propping up Doug Emhoff as the antidote to toxic masculinity. It's a complete fraud, and it's worth pointing out that it's a complete fraud. If they can pull this sort of complete fraud, what else are they pulling a complete fraud about? It's completely irrelevant. Even people who think it's irrelevant somehow feel the slap is relevant, and I sort of am not so sure about that. But so they feel that part is relevant. And the Waltz thing is completely irrelevant. It's just tittillating.
Yeah.
But it's useful perspective. It sort of helps him. First, he was good looking when he was young.
Yeah.
Something happened between age 35 and age 60 that, like, really accelerated the pace of aging.
Happens to all of us.
No, it happened to me faster than you. You don't. You're 85 and you don't look as old as Tim Walz.
I don't look a day over 72. It's remarkable. But no, I mean, I think the Waltz thing maybe helps him. It counterbalances the hapless knucklehead narrative that he himself keeps promulgating. It's like, okay, but he did score with this CCP official daughter long ago.
It is pretty. I didn't mind the knucklehead. What's wrong with self-deprecating? He's basically saying I fucked up.
No, that part's not, it's not bad in and of itself. I'm just saying that the persona that has emerged from Tim Waltz does not counterbalance. It doesn't compensate for Kamala's perceived lack of gravitas. You need them to think, well, I'm not sure about Kamala, but Chris Murphy, she's making a point of talking about how closely they'll work together and blah, blah, blah. That could have been the narrative. He exudes competence, policy, conversancy,
he's wrong on the two greatest issues of our time. He was behind the horrible Langford immigration bill.
Tax credit.
He's for the expanded child tax credit. Fuck it.
Oh my God. Well, never mind. I take it all back. I didn't know that about it. His dark past.
He was one of the negotiators of the evil Langford bill. Good grief, Bob.
So what else?
The second thing is the fourth sex thing, and we can go over it quickly, is that it's sort of come out, and I think it's sort of new, maybe not, that James Comey, before he launched the Russia collusion investigation, sent attractive agents as a honeypot scheme into the Trump campaign to sort of find out what they could find out, fish for any negative evidence. That's pretty bad.
That would be a legit scandal.
That's pretty bad. But I think a lot of it's all. There was one little new angle, but
I've decided these FBI guys tend to be melodramatic. They have this very dramatized conception of their mission, and it's dangerous. By the way, I finally made it to the grassy knoll. Speaking of the deep state.
Did you agree with me?
I was in Texas. You mean it's all pretty small? It's like
Tiny, yes.
it's about. I mean, I had already heard that, and I had. I mean, I was so in that rabbit hole for a while that I could have recited the yardage between, the corner of the fence that the second shooter was supposedly behind, and the limo. But it was informative and interesting.
It is informative, but I actually didn't go behind the fence. I just went up to the school book depository.
I did that, but you can
and
no
that's so
longer.
close. That's so close. You don't need a second shooter. And that's
The second shooter. It's a weird thing. Anyway, I'm going to have a Jeff Morley's going to be on my podcast right around November 22nd, which will be the 61st anniversary, and he's a leading authority on all this, and we'll talk about that.
The obvious scandal that it would drop. It probably would have dropped by today if it was going to drop. Is anybody who was involved in a P. Diddy party, or even better, a P. Diddy sex tape? That would be a logical thing to drop on them. But apparently not.
What did he call them? Freak-offs?
Yeah, I think
freak-offs. I mean, if you can connect Doug Emhoff to one of those freak-offs, now you got a story.
I don't think so. The other item is the end of Meachamism. This is more exciting for you than sex.
I applaud the end of Meachamism.
I mean, clearly, the essence of Meachism is first an obsession with a preachy obsession with the death of democracy, but more important, analogizing everything to the civil rights movement, where there aren't fine people on both sides. There was a right side and a wrong side, and the bigots who were on the wrong side were bad people, and the Meachams who were on the right side were good people. So he applies that template to Charlottesville. No fine people on both sides. Trump was horrible to say that. And then it gets applied to the Trumpists by Biden, who says, that the Trump supporters are garbage. And whoa, does he get blowback? And people are saying you've blown the election because he applied Charlottesville to the current situation. So that he went full Meacham, and that was
that's beyond Meacham.
So you're not going to be able to go full Meacham anymore.
That's beyond Meacham. To suggest that all Trump supporters are garbage, if you construe his comments that way, is
followed Meacham lately. I used to think better of the American people. I used to think that the people who would voted for Trump wouldn't vote for Trump this time. And now I'm reassessing my view of the American people. I just, blah, 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 blah. You're really a bad person if you vote for Trump again.
Sounds like you're taking it personally. Can't imagine why.
Anyway, this is on tape. This was an appearance on Meet the Press or somewhere. So the point is Meachamism has reached a dead end. It has stopped paying off for the Democrats. It's in fact gotten them into trouble.
Oh man, it's going to be so ugly whatever happens.
And I like Meacham because he gave a good eulogy for Charlie Peters. But go ahead. What were you saying? Sorry.
This election, there's a sense in which you can't win. I mean, if Kamala wins, it'll be by nose, and Trump and a lot of his supporters will not give in, and it goes beyond the actual contesting of it. He'll probably fail, but it endures in this bitter, conspiracy mindedness, and that's bad. And then if Trump wins, first of all, the anti-Trumpists will probably react in a counterproductive fashion. Not that I don't think there's real reason to be worried about Trump. I just think precisely because there is, you have to be kind of very careful how you play the game. I used to be
worried that they would go totally berserk if they lost the electoral college but won a big victory in the popular vote. For some reason, I now don't think they will go that berserk, because Kamala is a bad enough candidate that they can blame Kamala and all the people that push Kamala first before they riot in the streets and blame the electoral college. But I don't mean the Democrats will claim election fraud.
I mean, they'll just be so freaked out about the prospect of a Trump presidency.
Nothing the fraud. They will be against the rules. The rules are the electoral college beats the popular vote. And they'll say, we was robbed. and we need a revolution to change the system.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll get back to Trump as a dangerous fascist. And I think he may genuinely be dangerous and more dangerous this time around. And I thought he was plenty dangerous on January 6th. And plus the fucking tariff. I mean, Mickey, what he's saying, a universal tariff between 10 and 20% plus 30% on Chinese goods. Do you have any idea how inflationary it's going to be? It's going to be disastrous. It's going to restore almost no American jobs. It's a complete disaster. You agree, right?
I don't know. I assume it's inflationary. I'm not at all sure that it doesn't help American jobs. I mean, our nation was protectionist for, Lincoln was a protectionist. They were protectionists for many decades through the Civil War, at least. So did that destroy America? I don't think it did. So
it's inherently inflationary to move from a low tariff system to a high tariff system. There's just the transitional period is inflationary.
That's a shock.
Now, he may say, well, and he has hinted at this, I'll get rid of the income tax. And maybe you could argue, well, that part, no, you can't even argue that. It'll be inflationary. And if he does get rid of the income tax, of course, the net impact of this will hurt lower income people. And of course, nonetheless, lots of low income people will vote for Trump, completely unaware that what he's proposing, if he does it, will be a disaster for them.
Well, there are plenty of other things that are more important than incomes and income equality. So
I'm not just talking about income equality. I'm talking about
if tariffs achieve a lifting of uneducated, unmeritocratic people up the social hierarchy and achieve more equality.
I just explained that. It's bad for low-income people.
No, it's bad monetarily for low-income people. They will be working in a steel mill again and making less money. But I say it's more important that they are working in a steel mill and making good money than if they maximize their money.
No, there are very few industries. So you're talking about like a 10% tariff. There are very few industries where, America is just 10% less efficient than the foreign factory. And by the way, it would have to be even that doesn't cover the actual calculation, because there's all the cost of like starting up a factory again and blah, blah, blah.
Well, for electric vehicles, it would have to be 100%, but it is 100%. The Biden tariff on electric vehicles from China is 100%. So you have that. I'm aware of that.
Biden has. Don't get me started on Biden. I mean, I really think he's been one of the worst presidents in recent memory.
One question I hate. Go ahead.
Well, he's just. Everything that Trump did that I thought was bad, Biden has continued, if not doubled down on.
Those are all the things that Nick Lemon says are great achievements in the New Yorker.
Well, he doesn't mention all of them, all the ones I have in mind, I'm sure. But
what are the ones you have in mind?
So is Nick pro-tariff?
He portrays tariffs in an understated way as part of this whole grand industrial policy.
Now, Nick probably is pro-Abraham Accords, but I doubt he mentions that in the piece.
He doesn't mention that.
And which, by the way, may have lit the fuse to October 7th. But hey, details.
Didn't they obviously light the fuse to October 7th?
No, I don't think anybody can be sure. It's the most common theory.
I mean,
Biden continued the momentum by sustaining.
We have a grand deal, and the only people that screws are the Palestinians. So there we go.
Yeah.
And
Biden continued that train.
As long as we're in, but go ahead. You're on a roll. Keep going. Bad things Biden did.
Well, the whole China hawkishness, generally, broadly. Trump kind of started the tech war on China. This chip war that, as I just established, makes war in Taiwan more likely, is in some ways a continuation of Trump's initial declaration of war on Huawei. Right. And by the way, the other thing Triolo pretty compellingly argues is that, China's doing a very effective job of going about establishing an indigenous capacity to make the chips it's going to need It isn't there yet, but it's making very rapid progress. And so this is just self-defeating in the long run.
It's a short-term thing. Yeah. Do you know that Huawei is about to is making a luxury car that's going to put Mercedes out of business?
It's an amazing company. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean,
Okay.
this Huawei smartphone that I'm holding up, Mickey, it's not the smartphone I use now, but it's like 4 years old. It's as good as anything out there now. The only reason I don't use it is because of Trump's war has made it an increasingly compromised tool,
Yeah.
software-wise. But yeah, go ahead.
While we're on the Middle East again, this leak of the Israeli attack plans, I believe, is being blamed on some of your friends in the Biden bureaucracy who were supposedly leaked it as an last-ditch attempt to ward it off. And
you mean the leaking of the plans?
My imagined conversation, you now defend them.
The leaking of the plans for the strike that did happen?
No, that didn't happen. I assume it's the one that didn't happen yet. Is her name Tabatabai? Is that her name?
I don't know.
This woman, pro-Iranian woman who works in the Defense Department, has been put on leave or demoted. She's been sent to Siberia because people accuse her of the leak. It seems to me obvious that they were fake plans leaked by Israel, but maybe that's because I'm too conspiratorial.
That was one theory. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not really conversant in this.
Okay.
But I don't see any reason to believe that what Israel did isn't what they had planned. It makes sense. It's kind of like as much damage as they could do while still giving Iran a tea leaf if Iran wanted to claim that not much damage had been done, and so wouldn't have to retaliate. On the other hand, as we, I think, probably agree, Bibi doesn't really want it to end here. So
yeah, why would Bibi do that? He wants it to keep going.
Yeah, I don't know, but he did. I mean, maybe maybe Biden, maybe there's some agreement to do nothing more dramatic than that.
That would be my guess.
The election. What?
That would be my guess.
Yeah.
Here was the third thing. Why is there all this concern about the falling population levels, which apparently are falling worldwide? It's even falling in Africa now. And people are saying, well, they're going to be fewer people in China and fewer people in the United States. And it's horrible. It's horrible. With AI, why is it horrible? What's so horrible about it?
Well, I mean, I'm not personally sounding the alarm, but it does. I mean, it seems to me that, you tell me, I don't really look into this stuff, but I assume that
writing a book on AI.
Well, no AI, but as for the birth rate thing, I assume that birth rate trends favor the future of Trumpism, right? It's the young Kamala supporters who aren't having many babies, right? Aren't in the heartland? Aren't they having babies? You tell me.
Oh yeah, I haven't really thought about anybody who's crassly thinking long term in those.
Is that crass? Is that crass?
Yeah, because all the Trumpists are natalists, and they're all incredibly worried about this trend. They don't say, "Hey, it's good because there are only going to be 3 people left, but 2 of them will vote for Trump." I mean,
but a lot of them are actually having babies, right?
So the top 10 states with the highest birth rates are red states. The bottom 10 are blue states.
I don't know, but the AI thing reminds me is, if I try to console myself that in the end it'll be okay if Trump wins. One scenario is, I think over the next 4 years, AI is going to be very disruptive. And Trump is now on record saying, kind of bring it on. Like, so it could be political trouble for him, which of course I welcome. If AI is indeed destabilizing, there's going to be a lot of things for people not to like about it. There are things for people to like about it, but it's going to freak a lot of people out. It's going to cost a lot of jobs. It's going to do this, going to do that. And Trump may have some explaining to do.
I assume Trump will be guided by Elon Musk. Aren't his positions slightly more sensible? He sees danger in AI.
So far, the talk they're talking.
He doesn't like Sam Altman.
Elon is somewhat more in favor of regulation than other people like Andreessen Horowitz. So far, Trump is talking more the Andreessen Horowitz line, and I don't know for sure how much Elon really cares. I don't know what his actual heartfelt position is, but anyway, Trump and JD Vance are so far, maybe Vance more volubly, kind of anti-AI regulation. Pretty much. I mean, I'm sure there's some of it they'll accept, but that's their line. And I think if we start seeing a lot of upheaval, you can well imagine a lot of people in the heartland not being happy about some shit that shakes out. I mean,
that's a good point.
Where are the calls? Where are the call center operators? They're going to be dropping like flies.
Yeah, Trump.
Did they live in the heartland?
There was some town in the middle of Illinois, I think, that had the perfect American accent that did a lot of call center work. But I think that's long.
They've got about a year left.
That's long been supplanted by outsourcing, and
okay.
I do think Trump is not a man of the future. He's not ready to completely process the effects of AI. He wants to go back to the 1950s.
Well, at first he was following. He sensed where the Trump crowd was in terms of the Trump grassroots, and he was saying this AI stuff is scary. But then he had the dinner at David Sacks's house and got billions and billions from Silicon Valley, and he just switched just on a dime, just like 180 degrees.
The Bitcoin.
Not billions. Wait, not billions. Like, I guess in the end, hundreds of millions. I shouldn't exaggerate.
What is only hundreds of millions?
I mean, in terms of the amount of super PAC money coming from Silicon Valley and campaign money, it's probably a few hundred million or something.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not going to bust you for saying $1 billion. The scary thing is Bitcoin, because a lot of these activists are Bitcoin people, and they say, here's Trump's 10-point agenda, and it's all good stuff. And then point 10 is accumulate Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, the crypto money is coming into politics so fast and furious that Kamala is doing a fracking number on it. Like, well, I originally thought this, but I'm warming up to it.
What a great leader she is.
Well, it's like all politicians do this shit. I don't favor it, but I mean, there's a lot of corrupting money. It worries me. By the way, you wanted to keep this to a tight hour. We're now approaching 2 hours.
Okay.
Quickly though, Musk himself, do you think he's getting weirder and weird? Because like my line is, and we may write about this in the next Nonzero newsletter, but that if Trump wins, this is going to carry oligarchy to new heights. And I think I think on both sides, there are trends that should worry us in terms of the influence of billionaires. But Musk, I think he has single-handedly done a world of good for Trump along several dimensions. And the plan apparently is for him to become some kind of efficiency czar who may have the power to, axe agencies and so on. So in terms of like the amount of what? Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just if you combine the amount of power he has wielded, which includes his control of Twitter, he's suppressing anti-Trump news on Twitter. He's rallied all these Elon fanboys, many of whom probably wouldn't have cared enough to vote. And he's donating a shitload of money. And Trump is saying, yeah, Elon can virtually join the administration, and he'll tell us what to cut, and we'll cut it. And of course, Elon's companies do business with so many agencies in the government that's just inherently corrupting.
It's incredibly hard to cut the government. There's your bumping rules. If you eliminate somebody's agency, they have a right to go someplace else and bump other civil servants. It's incredibly complex web of regulations that you have to get Congress to rip out if you're going to do it. And does Musk carry a lot of weight in Congress? I don't think he carries that much. At some point, Musk is going to bump up against forces that will stop him and tell him no. And I think he's just going to bounce back. He has plenty of other stuff to do. But he's for way more legal immigration. He's going to get away with that? I don't think so. There are limits to what even Elon Musk can do. I'm not even sure he's helping Trump that much. I think he might be, but
I think he is.
He's drawing a lot of attention to himself, which I'm not sure is a great for Trump.
Well, Trump's numbers got better as Musk's involvement grew, but
what he is doing, and this is a very interesting point that was going to be my final point, is there are all these men, who don't have great employment prospects, and they don't have a sense of purpose. And Musk at least gives them a sense of purpose. The purpose being to go to Mars. It's not the purpose I would choose, but at least it is a purpose. We are part of the civilization that is exploring the stars. It's something. It's better than nothing. So I do think that lack of purpose is a big problem, and he at least has a partial solution.
Well, on the point, I don't agree that. I don't know how many otherwise disoriented young men there are in Middle America who are just really, really revved up about this Mars thing. But I think on how much Musk could change government, I think I don't know that much about this, but I assume this is an area where Trump can push the envelope and dare the courts and various other actors to stop him, and this will be a gray zone. That's what I would guess, is that Trump will, if he has to just change the locks on offices, right? And not give the people he doesn't like new keys. I mean, who knows what he'll do?
Well, there's some things like having this new schedule of employee who can be fired at will that he might be able to get away with. That's an old, people at the Washington Monthly are attacking it, but it's an old Charlie Peters proposal is 50% of the people should be fired at will, be able to be fired at will. So we're at like 5% now. So if we go up to 10%, it's not going to be the end of the world. But in terms of just hacking away at jobs, I think there's nothing the federal bureaucracy and judiciary will defend more forcefully than that. They would rather separate children from their mothers at the border than do that. The focus on space travel would not have taken hold yet. I don't quite know how it would take hold, but do you just buy Musk T-shirts with a picture of Mars on it? I don't know.
I think what young Musk fanboys like is what they like about Trump. His norm busting and his calling people names that used to be considered too impolite, and it's just all that kind of shit.
But it's also the sort of, it's very democratic. I mean, Musk is there on Twitter playing video games that you play, right? And he's posting his score and saying, how well he did, and et cetera, et cetera. It's, he's just like us, Bob.
Yeah, many people have compared me to Elon Musk.
And you used to be buddies. It's too bad.
Elon and I were once so close. It's sad.
I think he's incredibly brave. I mean, is he wearing a bulletproof vest under that T-shirt? I mean,
he talks about getting assassinated. I mean, it's kind of part of his Messiah complex to talk about that, I think, and to imagine it. But
he's drawn a lot of attention to himself.
Well, he's got. Where did I read that he's got 3 separate security companies or something? He's not traveling alone.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
So do you want to bet the odds right now? The odds are 2-1. It's, betting markets say like 65-30. So
I think that's way overly pro-Trump.
You do.
I would.
So I can't get you into 2-1 thing where if Trump wins, I get 200. If Kamala wins, I get 200. If Trump wins, I give you 100. You don't want to do that?
We had one outstanding bet. I forgot what it was.
Yeah, me too.
We'll replay the tape and it'll come back to us.
Yeah, we just have to find out which tape. Oh, you mean from this tape? From this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I said that something would happen and you said it won't.
That probably happened more than once, but okay. All right. Well,
anyway, we should do a postmortem at some point.
We should. And remember, folks, whatever happens next, this too shall pass.
Okay.
I close with those inspiring words. You know, it makes you wonder why I never became president. With lines like that, folks, this too shall pass.
You grew up in a middle-class family.
I'm a man of the people.
Yeah,
I cannot say too often, Mickey, that I was not only born in Oklahoma, I was conceived in Kansas. And it just doesn't get more middle American than that.
I didn't know that. That's impressive.
I've told you before, but you repressed it. You don't want to know because you grew up in Beverly Hills and oh, is that Hector the pool boy I see through your window, Mickey?
No. I'm in Beverly Hills, but not of Beverly Hills. But
that's right. Wrong side of the tracks. I forgot.
Anyway.
Well, next time we talk, it'll be in a very different world, one way or the other.
Possibly. I mean, this thing could go on for months and months, as you know.
That would be a different world.
Yeah. Okay.
If we're actually into the turmoil of that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Let's hope that doesn't happen.
Let's do. And yeah. And we'll see you next time.